Okay, welcome to another episode of eCom at One, and today's guest is Craig Campbell. Now, Craig, I've known from afar for a few years, although we've never actually spoken until today. And Craig, I would say, is a prolific SEOer, been in the game, in the business for, I think, 18 years, maybe more, but we'll find out shortly. Welcome to the podcast, Craig.
Thank you very much, Richard. It's a pleasure to be here. I hate it when people say 18 years. It makes me feel really old, actually. I need to cut that down a bit. I think when I started in SEO, I was telling everyone I had been in it for 10 years, and now I need to start chopping off the time, just obviously to get that. No one's going to use you if you've been in it for 2 months, but I now need to reverse my strategy and chop some of that time off because.
So I would say in 18 years, you've heard and seen it all pretty much, I would say, from back in the day when it was probably a half an hour job to get on page one of Google. And you put your business name and what you do in your title tag, and hey presto, you're probably there.
Yep.
Google Shopping was free pretty much back then, or about 15 years ago. It was Google, whatever, Frugal, wasn't it, back in the day?
Yeah. All of that, the good old days were amazing. I actually forgot about the Frugal thing where you used to just upload the CSV file, supplier list, and boom, in come a whole ton of sales. Actually, totally forgot about that. I remember I worked for a stationery company, and obviously it was just, I don't even know if you could call it SEO. It was just making a website and throwing shit out there if you like. So that's a good memory to have.
Yeah, I do. I remember it too. Yeah, it was literally that. Yeah.
My bosses are like, wow, man, what is it you're doing? And I'm like, I seen it on a forum. Some guy just said do this, and I'm like following this guy, but I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue.
Literally, when you could say page one in a day.
Yeah, it made money, whatever it was, and I still pinch myself to this day, going, shit, man, do I really know what I'm doing? I'm still just trying out shit and doing weird stuff. And
not a lot's changed, I guess, in terms of we're just testing. This takes a lot longer to figure stuff out, maybe now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Testing, always implementing and changing things and tweaking. Oh, I heard about this. Let's try that. Oh, no, that doesn't work. No, this does work. Okay, so I think it'd be good for you, if it's okay with you, if you want to just introduce yourself in terms of like what you've been doing. I know maybe not every year for 18 years, but let's have a
brief overview. So a brief overview of how I started. I didn't actually start in the stationery company. It was way before that, and what happened was I was a sales guy, and this station, it was a flooring company, and they had a website, and they had a graphic designer in, and the guy used to make flyers and brochures and all that stuff, and they had a wee website, and the sales were kind of crap during the week, and I was full time, so they said and I was obsessed by the internet, and I put a lot of my enthusiasm for the internet in general down to my age. So I'm 40 just now, but when I grew up, we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have the internet, we had nothing. When I hit around about 17, 18, the internet came out, dial-up connection, and I'm pretty sure everyone's in the same boat. They went, oh shit, this is amazing. You can look at your house in Google Earth and all this weird stuff. So I became very, very hungry and enthusiastic about the internet purely because it was new, it was mind-blowing. The fact that I could play ping pong with a random guy in France or whatever was just amazing. And so I was in this job and hungry for the internet, and they knew this, and they said, can you go on there and just mess about and do whatever. And I was just pissing about with the website. And then I kind of went down the route of thinking I was going to become the next big web designer. So I went to PC World, bought this thing called Mr. Site. It was an off-the-shelf platform, absolute dog shit. And I was messing about with Mr. Site. Had this crappy little website, and I could do scrolling text and all that on it. And I thought, oh man, you are the man, because I learned how to do a small bit of HTML. So I thought I was going to be a web designer because SEO really wasn't a thing. I was pissing about with websites, left that job, ended up in a stationery company, and they were trying to be revolutionary and have an e-commerce store and stuff like that. And all you were doing was uploading that CSV file from the supplier. It was all duplicate content, all absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Stick it into Frugal and stuff like that. And again, I was in charge of the website, directory listings, and all the kind of crap of the day. And then SEO constantly evolved, and it was spammy, it was garbage. A link was a link then, and there was just dudes online who on forums taught me a lot, and that's where it all came from. And I ended up a few years later, I ended up just going freelance, working in my bedroom, and I'd done that for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Then I run an agency for about 8 years. After that, and I didn't set out to build up an agency. I just had to get a developer, had to get a content writer and stuff like that. Before I knew it, I bloody had an agency and all these staff and all these overheads. Quickly, well, not quickly, because I had the agency for 8 years, but I decided, you know what, this is too much stress, and decided to go down the route of affiliate marketing, doing speaking events, and toning things down from a noose around my neck point of view, in terms of having staff, because obviously we're in this industry where we're using technology, smarter ways of working. Yeah, I had 17 staff at one point, which wasn't very smart, and taking clients on and not tying them up to contracts. So it was quite stressful. So I decided to de-stress and go down this route of affiliate marketing, not have all my eggs in one basket. I've got a couple of e-commerce websites. I've got a couple of affiliate websites, and I do a lot of private affiliate stuff for the likes of SEMrush. And so on, and do training, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So you've seen it all by the sound of it. Obviously worked self-taught at the beginning, well, always self-taught, but then obviously sort of done the website thing, the web design thing, and then got a real passion for SEO, worked at for a company, seen how maybe not to do it, or back in the day, sort of a lot of different things, and then ran your own agency, which is a podcast in itself, but we'll skip that bit. But obviously what I'm really interested in, and obviously we'll touch on the affiliate marketing side, but really some of the things that now 18 years later, working on a lot of different projects for yourself and for sort of certain clients and coaching and SEO training, a lot of different things there. So you've seen a lot of things from probably startup all the way up to, tens of millions of pounds a year businesses. So right now, I think there'll be a lot of businesses listening in where now, obviously, COVID-19 epidemic that we're in right now. And I think speed and sort of what things can people do now. Obviously, this podcast will probably go out in about 10 days. I think we're on the last day of March today. So about 10th, 15th of April, we'll be going live with the podcast, the guys that are listening in. And I think pretty obviously, we're still going to be locked down here in the UK at home. But what we're seeing is certain e-commerce stores, a lot of them are flourishing right now. Obviously, some are not. It really depends on the vertical, what they're in. Well, what would you say are some things that e-commerce stores can do sort of in a short term, quite quick, to see some impact in this next couple of months where we might be working from home?
I mean, I think, and as you said, e-commerce websites, people are still buying and stuff like that. So obviously, unless you're selling, something that no one's interested in, I think you're going to flourish. And I think for now, there's no special trick to obviously making money, in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months. But what I would say to anyone at the moment is, I've had a couple of people that I do kind of consultancy with saying, I want to switch off my AdWords and stuff like that. And you're like, why are you switching off your AdWords? Like, it's really still converting very well. Like, there's no reasoning behind this decision other than you're hearing tens of others of people are saying, switch off your AdWords. Now, if you're a travel company and you're doing AdWords, it's probably wise to switch it off because you're not going to convert. But if you're in e-commerce, selling a product, whatever it may be, then people are at home bored and still buying. You've got people out there who are impulsive buyers, including me. I'm buying stuff on Amazon every other day. And, I think you just have to utilize this time to really double down on everything you can be doing with your e-commerce website. Now, what I would always say to people, obviously it's a tough time and sales may be slightly dipped or whatever it's going to be. We are going to come out of this, whether it be in 2 weeks, 2 months. I don't have the answer to that. But what I would be doing is thinking about any website, and it doesn't have to be e-commerce, but e-commerce in particular. You get say you get traffic to your website. 5% of that traffic may engage with your website. They may click on stuff, they may download something, they may sign up to a newsletter, they may purchase something, whatever it may be. 95% of those businesses, of that traffic, doesn't do anything whatsoever. So that's lost traffic. They might go to your competition or whatever it may be. And unless you really have the perfect marketing campaign, not just SEO, but get push notifications on there so you can get abandoned carts. You can utilize your Facebook pixel, because the cost of Facebook retargeting has probably dropped by 10 times just now. So I think it's time to use, if you've not got a Facebook pixel, then bloody get the thing installed, because you're retargeting people, hot leads who've been in your website and maybe chosen not to buy at that point. So I think looking at push notifications is another way to get people who've been on your website to sign up and maybe get them back, or push a message if they abandon the cart or whatever.
What sort of technology would you recommend for that? Is there any specific providers for the push notifications? Say if you're on Shopify or Magento, or
I mean, it depends on what you're using, but there are tools out there like OneSignal or pushengage.com. There's loads of providers for that, and they're very low cost. And my push notifications for my own website, these are all things that I'm implementing on my my own projects as well, because it's quite easy to become quite lazy with things. Does anyone have the perfect campaign? No. But what I've now decided or got my head around is, we have traffic going to websites and we're not using technology, not using smart ways of working to get as much of that as we possibly can. So having better, a better opt-ins for email subscribers, have your make sure you do have a Facebook pixel installed. Whether you're using that data just now or in a month's time, it really doesn't matter. Start collecting that data and push notifications, because all you're doing is trying to continue to get people to buy from you and get those conversions up. So screw as much as you can out of it, because I can bet your bottom dollar what I've just said, if I go to any other way, if I was to go to your if you had an e-commerce website just now, everyone can pick holes in everyone's website. Not everyone's doing all of this stuff, and it's these small little things that can get your conversions up by 5 or even 10%. It makes all the difference. Also, looking at the calls to actions on your website's another simple solution. Some people have e-commerce websites and they're absolutely horrendous. But you mentioned Shopify earlier. Now, I used to hate Shopify. I used to tell people, and to a certain degree, I still dislike it from an SEO point of view. But I think what they have that's really cool, and obviously they're improving all the time, is their upsell kind of things as well. Their kind of upsell kind of automation, or whatever you want to call it.
Abandoned cart type automations. And
So I think looking at that kind of stuff and using that kind of stuff and implementing it just now is the perfect timing. Don't be ignorant like me. I used to always think, I'm not going to get people to sign up for push notifications. I'm not going to start following people around the internet, spamming them with, my ads or whatever. But that stuff really, really does work. And I was always, I just felt awkward with it. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, if they don't want to buy, they don't want to buy.
So I think two core things there. We've got to look at, if you're running paid ads, you're running AdWords, obviously people at the moment panicking and going, turn them off, or, just not sure. Well, the reality is the data will tell you what's what. If you're in certain industries, yes, it's going to be challenging, but other industries are flourishing, as you say. So it could be a real opportunity rather than turn it off. So really look at the data. And then really it's about, what you're saying is sort of squeezing what you've already got, taking that 2-3% conversion rate to a 4-5% conversion rate. Can potentially add like you say, massive amount of conversion value to an e-com store by quite a simple thing. I mean, the amount of sites, like you say, that you don't see the pixel on. Pixel? What's a pixel? And you think, oh my God, these guys are doing 10 grand, 50 grand a month on ads and they don't know what a pixel is. Yeah. And it happens, doesn't it? I actually we actually do have a client that is spending over 50K a month. He's spending 50K a month when he came to us, and he didn't have a pixel on his website for Facebook. It's like,
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, unbelievable. But yeah, push notifications, I think that's one that is probably a newer thing where more people are probably a little bit more unsure how to do it. So I think you've obviously some good recommendations there around tools. And the abandoned carts, I mean, it's quite often just built into the systems, but quite often, like you say, it's either not enabled properly or it's just got a default setting that says, hey, first name or something that's not. So it's quite, some quite simple things just to push the conversion rate as opposed to spending more money, which is great. Yeah, thank you, Craig. So SEO, obviously, we're really looking forward to diving into some specifics on the SEO. So what would you say right now? You've got an e-commerce store. What are the biggest ranking factors for e-commerce right now?
Ranking factors for e-commerce, I mean, I think link building, content, all of that kind of stuff are always going to be the strong things to do, but they take you so far. I think in terms of e-commerce, and not just e-commerce, any website, again, in general, these methods still apply. It's the kind of click-through rate and user engagement I find works really well. So I'll give you an example of where I feel that, an example of click-through rate and how far it can take you. So I put out last week, I was giving away a free SEO course. Put that out, and lots of people subscribed to it, which is fine. Now, I haven't built a single link to the page on my website where I said I was offering a free SEO course, and I'm on page 2 without building a single link. There's no real optimization or whatever on there now. To rank for free SEO course is outrageously competitive now. Yeah. I think there's 2 ways to look at it now. The way I'm looking at it just now, I'm on page 2 and I'm going to force it up onto page 1. How am I going to get there? I'm going to build some links and better the content and stuff like that. However, normally what happens is I do it the opposite way, where I build links to content and you tweak the content and so on, and then try to kind of force user engagement because I feel that anyone can get to the top 5 in page 1. That's all good and well. Being in the top position as such, I think, has a lot to do with the user engagement signals that come into play. Now, by that, I don't mean go away and get some crappy bot and send another 3,000 people to that particular page or product or whatever you've got. I think Google's clever enough to be able to identify bot traffic, and I've got a kind of weird sequence of events that I do when I try to promote a product or a page. So what I do is I publish the page. I very quickly send out to the push notifications, which has got several thousand people on there. I also do a small amount of paid social media traffic on it. And I do organic, I put it out to the kind of world, organically in social media. And just to top it all off, I do also use a service called microworkers.com. Yeah. And basically what happens there is for like 2 cents or 1 cent, you can get someone to go on there and click about or stay on that page or whatever, to kind of manipulate the kind of user signals. And if you put that into testing, come back and tell me that user engagement doesn't have a ranking factor, I think you'll be blown away.
That would show us an organic visit to the store site, whatever, page.
Yeah. And they're doing something engaging with it. And I'll tell you another quick thing that I've seen, which is really cool. Everyone's heard of Neil Patel, I'm sure. And, whether you love him or hate him, he's a very smart guy. Now, what Neil Patel does, if you go onto his blog, so he's got this blog and it's like a free SEO course or a free SEO video, and it's got a countdown timer on it. So you cannot watch this video unless you sit there for 10 minutes on his website and wait for that timer to go down. Now,
Ah.
if you leave his website and you go back,
Yeah.
it starts at 10 again. Now,
There's
what
user engagement there? Yeah.
So he's forcing you. He is forcing your hand, and that's where creative thinking. I don't have the special answer of how to get the best user engagement for every e-commerce store, but you have to be creative. You have to do things to make sure that people stay on that website one way or that product page one way or another.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So user engagement, big one.
User engagement, links are a big must. I think technical is very, very important from an e-commerce website. I look at e-commerce websites and audit them, and just due to the structure and everything of an e-commerce website, you've got people having product variations and stuff like that being open, so they've got cannibalization, or they're wasting a whole lot of crawl budget on crappy URLs. So I think between the usual content links, technical and user engagement are two of the biggest things that you have to sort out on an e-commerce website.
Okay. So maybe just for a second, could we jump into crawl budget? Because I think that's probably I want to say newer, but it's a newer thing that I think that's been discussed this last probably year or so. Mm-hmm. Give us a bit of a few tips on how to get the crawlers to crawl your website right, or how to get your site in a good position, so what the bots are crawling are the right things.
Yeah. So on that, you have a lot of different e-commerce platforms, and you have to just to put this in simple terms, like say you've got 10 money pages, 10 main products that you really need to rank. That's what's driving all the traffic. Make sure that Google gets all of them. All of the kind of search filters, all of those URLs for those 10 products have to be crawlable by Google. You can essentially block out all the other garbage if you really wanted to. All the kind of search filters, all the kind of other garbage that comes up with an e-commerce website. No follow, no index, do whatever you want. Just make sure that Google doesn't crawl that, because what happens is, say you've got 10 products and you've got 1,000 different search filters and stuff like that. Google could potentially crawl 70% of all your search filters and ignore your 10 money pages, and that's an absolute disaster. So that's where it's really important to do that. But also, in terms of helping Google crawl pages, a great internal linking structure is key to making that happen as well. And again, I audit websites and I look at their internal linking structure and go, this is absolutely horrendous. There's a lot of very small, simple things that people just ignore. Again, back to basics. A good internal linking structure, block, the Google from being able to access useless URLs. They're crawling and indexing them. You can go to your search console and see what's in the index. Make sure that you get them de-indexed. I think crawl budget is massive. Google does not crawl 100% of anyone's website. Very rarely. It might, people say, oh yeah, it does. Here's a website. Look at it. Blah, 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 blah. That's fine. But the reality is Google has billions or trillions of URLs to crawl and index. And it does give a percentage, to each website. So make sure that you do make sure that your money URLs are being indexed, because that is the most important reason why we're here, is to make sure that we have our money URLs indexed. Make me laugh there, Richard. Come on. But
so let's say I think typically what's going to happen is e-commerce store, substantial store. You've maybe got, let's say, 5,000 SKUs. You've got maybe 50 money pages, 50 money products. That's 1%, I think, is it? If my maths are right.
Yeah.
5,000. So those 50 product pages are obviously within, subcats, cats, be a mixture. Is there anything specific we would do to those 50 pages? So you've said obviously you got to go into the search console. We've got to have a look what's being indexed. Do we do things with the sitemap to make sure those 50 pages have got any preference in there, or?
I don't really touch a sitemap as such. You can go in there and make sure that Google crawls it more frequently. Do I believe that actually works? Nah. You know, it probably does. You know, it's a guide to Google, and it probably does work to some degree. But I don't really go down the route of manipulating sitemaps as such. I think having a good internal linking structure to those pages is more than enough. You know, I know people will go over the top and say, "No, do this in your sitemap and do that." I think if you seem to be doing all of that, then it potentially looks spammy. If you're trying to force Google to say, "Crawl this page daily," you know, it's just a joke.
So, because there's a command, I can't remember off the top of my head now, is it index dot? And then you put the URL into Google and it tells you last time it was indexed. Is that right? Yeah. So something like that to see when that page has last been indexed. Obviously, if it's been indexed 2 weeks ago, you know you've got a problem potentially. You know, that page needs to be linked to from a higher hierarchy potentially.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about you know, pushing power to those money pages. You know, and obviously you might have supporting content through blog posts on there or other relevant stuff. Just link it all together, and you know, do it with some form of purpose. You know, no matter what e-commerce website there is, there's always going to be a top 20 or a top 50 products.
Would you say the same then with you know, we touched on it right at the beginning when we touched on Frugal, sort of right at the beginning, where, you know, back in the day and still now, people take their product feed from a manufacturer, distributor, supplier, they dump it into their store and they go, "Hey, I've got 5,000 SKUs," but they're exactly the same as the other 500 people that are using the same manufacturer's resource, you know, distributor content. So in terms of how important is it that people take that percentage, those 2-3% of products, and rework those products?
It's massive. You know, Google is not going to crawl and index the same crap, you know, that's on 500 or not more websites. And as painful as it may seem, that is what has to happen. And I know guys that are still in that position who upload product feeds, and, you know, the prices change daily or weekly or whatever it's going to be. So all of the work that you've just done gets overwritten by the new product feed. So you're going to have to either figure out a better process or a better system or a better website that kind of avoids that happening. You know, for me, you know, if I was in that situation where I was uploading that kind of setup, I would certainly use that as the back end of a website and have a front end of a website with landing pages that didn't ever change. You know, a WordPress website that then when you click on buy now or add to cart or whatever it's going to be, it then takes you to that crappy e-commerce store that's full of duplicate content.
I see. So you actually got landing pages for your top products.
I mean, that's just the way that I used to attack it. You know, when I worked for that stationery company, because we had the exact same thing, where stationery prices change on a weekly basis, and the supplier basically just gave us that sheet, and boom, they would get imported into the website, and all my descriptions and everything were just wiped out with the same garbage that everyone else had.
Overwrite, like, great, we've got to write all those again. Or where's the Excel sheet? We didn't have one. We still have that now. Where we just make sure we've got the master sheet just in case. So a couple more things that I think a word a terminology. There's obviously loads in SEO, but an area of SEO that I think is every SEO talks about. But I think site speed, you know, for e-com stores particularly. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think you know, I'm not sure I would join the people who say site speed is the, you know, a majorly important ranking factor as such. However, I think from a user engagement and a user experience point of view, if you're clicking on something and you can't do that, then it's going to negatively impact you, whether that's, you know, people bouncing off your website very quickly or, you know, losing that potential customer. So yes, it's important. However, I don't think it's massively important that you get it from, you know, 3.2 seconds to 2.1, or, you know, from 2.1 to 1.7. You know, people become obsessed with it. So although I do believe that, you know, site speed is very, very important overall, you know, it's not going to massively impact your rankings just by getting that extra 0.2% of speed.
It's more about what happens with a faster site, because they're more likely to stay, more likely to engage, more likely to click through, hot stay, less likely to bounce. Those sort of correlated stats that go with it.
I had a guy, and we've all had this guy as a customer, no doubt, you know, a really tight guy, very tight with his wallet, didn't want to spend money. And he had this Magento website, and I used to run like a bag of crap. Now, he had an amazing product on the website that lots of people were very, very interested in. So he got some SEO, he started to get some good results. But if there was 5 or 6 people on the website buying at the same time, which is not uncommon for an e-commerce website, it used to grind to a halt.
Yeah.
So I was on the phone, I was telling him, like, you need to get a better server, you need to do this. And one of the kind of server guys that worked for a hosting company that I talked to basically said, Craig, your customer is essentially trying to run a business with, 10,000 products on a server that's got less space than your fucking mobile phone. What the fuck is he doing? And that's what he said to me. What the fuck is he doing? He just said, the tight bastard is just going to have to cough up if he wants to continue to get sales.
Yeah. I suppose it's like trying to take Tesco's and put it in the corner shop. It don't bloody work.
Yeah. So that is the way I look at it now. And I just say to people now, you look at your 16 gig phone and you're trying to run an e-commerce website from a 4 gig server. Magento is I'm sure is server intensive, and
very much so.
There are servers that are dedicated and optimized for Magento or various other platforms. So I think having the right platform from the get-go, if you're going to invest in SEO, going to invest in ads, and you're going to take your business seriously, make sure you've got the right bloody platform in terms of hosting and everything, because as you say perfectly, it's like trying to shove Tesco into a corner shop. It ain't going to work. The products are not going to fit, and all stuff's going to start pouring out the door. And
I think that's the thing, isn't it? That you see a lot of stores, they sort of start as a corner shop, or not even a corner shop. It's like a tray with some sweets on somewhere, and then they get the corner shop, and very quickly they get the Tesco. And you do see obviously a lot of, it's very obviously the industry is ripe for stories of very, very, very quick growth. I've got somebody on the podcast tomorrow who's doing 2 million plus a month after, I think, less than 2 years. It's like, wow, from a back bedroom. So it's okay, we're scaling, but if we're not then reinvesting, and sometimes it's just because they just don't know. They might have had a better website built 6 months ago and it was fantastic, but now they're doing 10 times the volume or 5 times the volume, and they go, this website's shit. Well, it was actually what you asked for, and it was but what we didn't do is predict potentially, or, and plan for what might be in terms of traffic, in terms of demand. And especially now, I mean, some of the stories I'm hearing now, obviously we've got a lot of people having a lot of challenges right now with what's going on with COVID-19, but some of the demand is unbelievable. I'm seeing stuff like 3 to 4 times as busy as Black Friday weekend on some websites. Like the food, we've got a company that sells fish, and literally half of his staff are out. They're obviously self-isolating. I think there's normally 15 of them, but I think there's only 5 of them now packing. And they're there like 16-hour days, just packing, trying to get it. But what they've got to watch also is obviously they have then, is their website able, is it scaled enough to be able to cope with the demand? Obviously we've got to keep an eye on the ads. We look after their ads and whatnot. So speed important, but don't get carried away too much with taking that 92% to 95%. We want to be looking at, that engagement. So we've obviously touched on engagement a lot. Now, one topic I'm really keen to drill into, he says with a pause, is link building. It's like a dirtiest word ever in SEO, so they say. But it is, I think you've obviously alluded to it already, quite an essential part of SEO where, certain strategies will get you so far, depending on how competitive that niche is and etc., where you are and what you've got already. Obviously, a lot of variables. But link building for e-commerce, we'd love to sort of drill into that and some of the strategies that you'd recommend now that we could maybe look at implementing, or people listening could implement.
Yeah, so link building, as you say, a lot of people go, oh, like, that's bad. And obviously it's part of Google's terms of service. Building one link can get you penalised.
Yeah.
However, it depends on how much you want to believe what Google tell you. Google have also released that link building is the #1 ranking signal as well. So take your pick. So obviously Google don't want you to fire up an automated tool and stick 20,000 links to your main category on your website. Absolute garbage. That crap just can't work. But link building is link building, and getting good quality relevant links to your website will help move the needle in terms of rankings and growth. Now, the way I look at it is I will always go out and start very, very clean. Get onto some directories and whatnot, relating to the business in question. Get some geographic specific links as well, get on some business directories. What that basically does, it's not really going to move the needle, but it builds up some domain authority. And what a lot of people look at is the DR or the DA of a website. So I always start out with some citations, if you want to call it that. Now, you can actually pay someone to do this, $65. $60, citationsbuilder.com. Now, the key part of this is, in the past, I have got someone in the office to get a hold of a client's website and put those bios and everything else into, say, 50 directories. Now, copying and pasting that into 50 directories, 1 or 2 might get indexed, that's it. The difference with Citations Builder is they spin the bios and send it to an indexing tool, so that 50 of them, if you buy 50 or 35 or whatever the deal is, they all get indexed and obviously then pass some form of power to your website. Now, after that, your opportunities or what direction you want to go down is entirely up to yourself. There's this whole white hat, grey hat, black hat talk that goes on, and it's all not absolute nonsense. It really is. I think you have to do what works, and what a lot of people will do is go down the route of buying guest blog posts. So there are vendors out there who do outreach on a daily basis and do campaigns for a wide range of clients. And they're then able to give you that link. So you can go to these guys, and they've got basically thousands and thousands of websites that they've got access to. And do a guest blog post. So whether you're selling fish or whatever, they'll get you onto some food website, and they'll get some article written up about here's the best fish, or why you want to fish, or whatever. And so guest blogs are probably the most effective.
So when you're looking at the guest blogs to go on, what sort of metrics are you looking at for those blogs to have? So you talked about domain authority. We talked about engagement, so like traffic to the sites and things like that. What are your sort of go-to metrics when you're looking at a blog to be written for a client or for yourself on another blog?
So what we always want is, we use DR. Most link builders will use DR, which is Ahrefs score. So the worst case scenario, we would look at a DR30. That's the lowest form of link. Then there's a middle one, which is DR45, and then a 60 plus. Obviously, all of these websites have to be relevant to your niche, and they also have to have traffic and rankings. There's no point in me getting a link from some shady PBN that's been flung up that doesn't rank for anything.
What's the best way? So obviously to get the DR score, we can use Ahrefs, but to find, for people listening to the podcast, to find the traffic numbers, traffic scores, or traffic amount to a site, what's the best way to do that?
Again, use Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever. Again, these will give you a guide as to whether these websites get traffic or not. And also keywords. You'll be able to see if they rank for certain search terms or if they don't. So what I would want is links from real websites, essentially, not some crappy PBN that's been flung out there that's got some nice metrics but gets no traffic, because what value is that actually going to pass to me? And it's just not natural. Google can quickly establish that PBN that gets no traffic's got 1,000 outbound links on it now. I think Google are very quick to be able to slam that kind of thing, or not pass value to it, or whatever way they look at it. So guest posts work really well. But also on the guest post side of things, what people tend to do is power up their guest posts with other things like PBNs or automated link building. Now that's entirely up to you. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but it's part of a strategy where people are not wanting to endanger their own website, but they're quite happy to endanger the person who's just sold them a guest post.
So they get the guest post they've just paid for potentially, and then building links to that post to make that link more powerful.
Yes.
If that blog post gets damaged in any way, it's not their site, it's somebody else's site.
Yeah.
I guess that's where you're crossing over a little bit. I don't know what hat you call that, but it's probably it's a grey hat. But
yeah. So you're going to have to people do things like that.
Best way then so I've got my fish website. I want to find guest posts or websites that might take guest posts. So is it as simple as a Google search to find the sites that take a guest post to do with?
I mean, you can do a Google search and do things like right for me and and have the word fish or food, or it doesn't have to be fish related. Food is also related to fish. So you can do a simple Google search and do that. But what a lot of people do is just look at the competition, export it from Ahrefs, what links they've got, put it into Pitchbox, and just start an outreach campaign. Just bang, send it out to everyone that your competition has links from, and someone will come back and say, yes, I can give you that guest post, but it's going to cost you $70, or whatever's going to happen. You can negotiate that down, and that's what's called outreach. Now, outreach is apparently what white hat guys do. So how that's but yeah, they still pay. So you get a lot of people saying paid links are bad and this, that, and the next thing. The problem you've got is paid links are bad. But if you were paying to be listed in someone's footer or the sidebar or whatever, and I think that was something that came up years ago. Google were talking about paid links, but people now know the value of a guest post or a link, and they are charging you. You can call it what you like, an admin fee or whatever. People are charging you, and there's no way around that. There is no way, unless you can offer free content or a free bunch of fish or whatever it's going to be. But you can do that as well. I'll send you out some smoked salmon there if you do this, and that could work. But in most cases, people want cold hard cash, and that's where people start. Again, SEO people say, "Oh well, I heard paid links were terrible." Blah 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 blah. Google don't have access to your transactional history or what went on in order for you to get that link. And I think Google have got a lot of other things to be worrying about it, more than whether you paid Joe Blogs down the road there, $40 for a guest post. So I think that is one strategy that works. You've also got the other strategy, which a lot of big companies use, which is the PR route. So they'll go down and they'll create fake news or real news or whatever's going to happen, and try and get some press related stuff, or get onto food magazines or whatever. I'm just using your fish guy as an example all around here, which
Fish Weekly.
So you can go down that route and get the PR thing. The problem that I find that you're going to have with your listeners is some of your listeners are going to have budget and they can afford PR, and doing everything the PR way and everything is probably the right way to do it for long-term sustainability. But if you're a guy like me who came from a background where I wasn't fortunate enough to have hordes of cash to rank my businesses, and I had to scrimp and scrape and rob Peter to pay Paul and all that stuff, which I think 80% of your audience will also have to have done. So you have to look at alternative tactics into not doing the PR route, go down the guest blog route, or tricking people into thinking a link's, whatever it could be. You can trick people into giving you a PR link. I could tell you tricks all day long on how to steal PR links, from companies and stuff like that as well. But obviously your audience might hate me for that, so I don't want to go down that route too much, and I don't want to come down as giving a whole lot of dodgy advice either.
That's cool. So obviously link building, super important. Start with that layer of directories maybe, just to get some foundation in there. Look at the sort of outreach, competitor links. You mentioned Pitchbox. Obviously you can do it manually if you can't afford Pitchbox, where you're reaching out to people, and then writing blog posts, and they'll vary in price. Potentially, obviously, you've got to get a bit of negotiating there when they come back to you and say, well, yeah, no problem, $300. And you go, $100. Okay, we'll meet $150 or whatever it may be. I guess there's quite, well, obviously that's exactly what we do basically. So in terms of the outreach, connecting with, we use SERPworks to pull out some of the data from Ahrefs and whatnot. And then we'll do a lot of manual. But a few people have mentioned Pitchbox to me. It's not one I've actually used, but it's one personally I'm going to explore that. Yeah.
Listen, see, Pitchbox, it does a lot of the work for you. It does a lot of automation. Also, when you copy and paste the websites into Pitchbox, it also scrapes the email address for you. So obviously, when you're doing it, you're pulling stuff and you're having to then use Hunter or various other things to do stuff with Pitchbox. Basically, does the whole lot. So a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm not paying, this price for Pitchbox because it's slightly expensive." But in terms of speeding up your process. People have got different, as you say, you pull this and you do that and you do this. Where, there are cheaper alternatives. You've also got Mailshake, where you can, a more cost-effective way of doing outreach without using Pitchbox, all the bells and whistles. But Pitchbox is the Rolls Royce of outreach and does all the kind of crappy scraping and everything else for you.
It's weighing it up, isn't it? The guys that are listening in, the ones that have got the budget, they'll just go all in, and it's not as. But nobody's obviously got unlimited cash and can waste cash. But knowing how long it can take to obviously you could go with a free trial of whatever and get a list, but then contacting those people one by one, finding their emails firstly, contacting them one by one, it's quite painful. And in some instances you may have to do it. But obviously, if it's going to take you a day there to maybe get 15 no's or 20 no's or 50 no's, whereas you can just automate that for what might be, I don't know, $100 a month or something like that. Starting point. So great. So SEO, we've touched on a lot of different things there. Obviously, content, technical, crawling, link building. Where do you see these things going? Where do you see? So we've got an e-commerce store. If I was preparing for the next, a bit of a tricky question. But I'm in it for the long haul, as we should be. I'm not just here selling my, I don't know, one-off thing. I'm here to build my brand, build my e-commerce store. It's pretty much, I think most of the people that will be listening to the podcast, they're either going to be e-commerce marketeers in the industry, so they want longevity, or they're going to be business owners that are doing it themselves. So in terms of like SEO strategies that you think are more long-term and things that people should be investing in, and where you see things going?
I think, in the coming years, I think obviously SEO is one way of marketing a website, but I think people have to now have an overall marketing campaign, if you like, rather than just focusing on SEO. I think, things that we touched on earlier, building mailing lists, building social media followings, building your brand, building technology and automation into the whole business is the way forward, because in years to come, artificial intelligence is going to come out and God knows what else is coming out. And I think in terms of future-proofing your business, no one knows if SEO is going to be here in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. So I think you have to adapt your marketing strategy as well and try to become an overall, have an overall digital marketing campaign using your pixels, using a mailing list. And I know a lot of people say, why a mailing list? I mean, mailing lists work really, really well even now. And also you can force that click-through rate and everything else by sending out a post or a product to a massive emailing list. So you can make that stuff look viral. So I think you have to think more like an overall marketeer than just an SEO.
Great answer. So having those different areas, within your marketing mix, and then obviously again you're protecting yourself as well. So if one was to be reliant on one, it's all right when one is working really well, but then one takes a penalty or a hit with paid ads, or your mailing list, GDPR, or, obviously things can change in any other platform. So having an all-round strategy. Okay, so obviously you've worked on a lot of campaigns over the 18 years.
Yes.
What would you say has been one of the best campaigns you've worked on, one of the best results on an e-commerce store? And what were some of the things that you did on that campaign specifically? It might be a bit challenging to go into too much detail because it might be private and whatnot, but is there anything specifically that sort of comes to mind when we think about a project you've worked on, and maybe some of the things that you did that really moved the needle on the SEO side or on the revenue side, or obviously both should go hand in hand?
I was going to tell you a really good story that sounds really cool, but it wasn't really e-commerce as such, because you'll never believe it. But I had this travel company, and I was doing it. They're probably not doing too well now. I no longer work with them, but I had this travel company, and they went from something like 20 million to over 100 million in turnover online. And what I'd done there was I helped them with links, and I helped them with SEO in general. But what I'd done was help build their team, give them training, and all of that kind of stuff. So it was quite a cool project.
Yeah. Wow.
And but to be able to see that value, that's not all down to me, but this was a very old school company. But believe it or not, even to this day, you cannot book a holiday online with these guys. So it wouldn't be e-commerce, but it's the one project that I worked on where you got a lot of satisfaction from the growth and everything else. But they were very old school, didn't implement e-commerce or systems, and they're now starting to implement internal systems. They've got like 100 sales staff, and the job is all about just getting the phones to ring. So that would be the one that I think overall I was able to have a very hands-on approach and be able to tell them to stop printing brochures and stop doing a lot of the old school stuff and bring them forward into sort of new technology, although they don't have an e-commerce website. That was massive.
Yeah, so that was more about sort of coaching, training, sort of showing them what is possible, and then layering that in with their management team, their teams, and implementing different things. Yeah, because I think that's a really good point, because I think when you're looking at scaling something, it's not just about learning that thing. It's about the person that's leading that business, or the person that's leading that team, has got to have a new set of skills, or they've got to open them, or they've got to go, forget what we knew, or if they just stay, right, that's how we do it, that's how we've always done it. Obviously, the worst thinking ever. Whereas to come into a business and sort of say, well, what we could do is this, and we thought about this, and such did this, and show them what's possible. But then showing them's one thing. You've then got, obviously, they've got to then move somewhere that's maybe outside their comfort zone, and like, oh no, we've always done it this way, so we'll stay. Hang on a minute. Well, okay, well, let's try. And it can be very challenging to work with companies when they may be so fixed in a certain mindset and a certain way, because they're maybe already very successful. So imagine when these guys go online then with a full e-commerce site.
Yeah. The problem you've got with that type of business is there's so much politics, and it takes so much time to get changes implemented or budget for something.
Yeah.
It's, what could these companies really have earned had they just improved that kind of process and opened up a bit. But you see it with lots of large corporate businesses. It's the same. An SEO is not an SEO in a lot of these companies. They're more of a politician, or whatever, game playing and all that kind of stuff. And, that guy there doesn't like you, so these changes are not getting passed. And it's a different world. But I think, the key part in anything is being able to implement new technology, new techniques, and get it done fast at scale. More content, more links, more everything. And I think people have done very, very successfully. Going from X to Y. But you have to try and overcome all the kind of bullshit that goes on with it. Going to the board, having to do a PowerPoint presentation, and listen to the crap for 3 hours, going back and forth asking questions to do one single little change. It can be very frustrating. But
that can be very much when you look at, like, obviously a big part of your business is auditing. Like any SEO professional, you do an audit of the site. And then you go back to the client and say, right, we've ordered your site. We've got these 15 things we need to do. Oh, leave it with me. You're like, no. How long are we going to wait? Is it going to be, and then you wait that 2 days. It's like, oh, no, it's going to be one of those. It's going to be 3 months or 2 months or, so yeah, it's getting everybody on board, trying to find out who's who in that organization, the stakeholders or the, you've got the tech guy who's obviously usually very passionate, but maybe doesn't know SEO.
Usually. And very protective of his thing. So if you start asking him to do 15 things, he thinks you're insulting his work.
Yeah. They're usually the guys we find that we've all really got to get on board with, or they've got to get on with. It's like a two-way street. We know we can't go in there and bulldoze and say, right, this is wrong, because obviously they're going to go, whoa, defensive, and they're going to try and get rid of you as soon as possible because you're making them look, maybe not quite in the. But obviously we wouldn't do that, but then you get them on board, but then you've still got, depending on the size of the organizations, maybe 2 other layers. And ultimately someone's got to sign off the day's work, or we'll put it in the workflow, or put it on the Trello board or whatever. Yeah. Okay. So obviously one of the big questions I was going to ask you was around sort of conferences. I know you speak a lot at a lot of conferences, maybe not quite right now because a few things have changed in terms of physical conferences. And I know you do a lot of training online. One of your big things is training. So what would you say some of the best resources out there in terms of training? Obviously your own, definitely.
Yeah.
And conferences when they're on. I know conferences probably will have to pivot now for the next couple of 6 months. And a lot of them may go to, the virtual side of things. And what would you say in terms of conferences and online training courses? What would you be your go-to sort of resources and conferences?
Online courses wise, there's tons and tons of people trying to now sell online courses. To be honest, I couldn't tell you of an amazing online SEO course that's out there. The problem with that is not everyone wants to give everything away. And so there's always courses that are very specific to like affiliate marketing, if you like. So Authority Hacker is really good at that. They have a lot of processes and everything that are dedicated towards affiliate. So I think you have to become niche specific when you're looking for a course rather than a general SEO course. Because if you come to mine, for example, I don't go into e-commerce too much because it's just a pain in the ass to go into every single thing, and affiliate marketing is more my passion than e-com. But I'm not going to do a course where I've got e-com, affiliate marketing, bloggers guides, and I'll be there all day. So I think there probably is courses out there for e-commerce, and as I say, Authority Hacker is really good for affiliate. Mine's is good just for a generic overview of what SEO is and what's involved. So no one's giving everything away, and that includes myself. In that, I'm not covering e-commerce.
And it's changing that quick as well, isn't it? New things, new tools.
In
terms of like conferences then, what would you say? Whereas I know you do a lot of traveling with your conferences. I was looking at your conference list yesterday, and I think you not literally all over the world.
So what I find is again with conferences, it really depends what you're into. Now, if you're going to go to the likes of Brighton SEO's great conference. I do attend it more for the networking side than listening to the speakers. But if you're into e-com, it depends on the speakers, whether they're going to talk about e-com there or affiliate or whatever it's going to be. So are you going to get the value from, exact conferences? No. Whereas if you go to an affiliate conference, it's all about affiliate. So I think where I find the most value is find an area that you're crap at or you want to excel in or whatever it's going to be, and go to conferences specific to that subject rather than generic conferences. Now, there's conferences all over the UK, all over the world. What are better? Like I'm due to speak in Spain at SEO on the Beach in June. Then I'm speaking at Affiliate World Europe in July. Now, SEO on the Beach, there's nothing better than going to a conference where you're chilling on a beach and the conference is on a beach under a canopy and people are having cocktails. And the reason being, people go, I'm not paying X amount for a ticket and then a flight to Spain and all that. But what you'll find there, the way to look at conferences is when people are relaxed and loosened up, they talk more, they drop a lot more knowledge.
The more value in the bar than in the conference centre, sort of thing.
Yeah, always. And that's the same for all conferences, to be honest. There's more knowledge spread at the bar than there is on stage. And sometimes you go to a conference and you're being recorded and there's only so much you want to give away. And I mean, I personally, I don't give a shit, to be fair. I'm that guy. I'm quite happy to have this.
It's not bothered.
You know, whatever. But people have got, you know, agencies, brands to protect, you know, squeaky clean, you know, whatever. But I think conferences all over the world, you know, I've been to Shanghai SEO, which is again full of affiliate marketers and stuff like that, and it's really high level stuff. It's not basic crap. So I think some of the more generic conferences are tailored toward basics. And it's not fair to criticise them for that, because there is a need for people to learn that.
It really depends on what you want. Obviously, there's a lot of the good conferences out there. Brighton SEO, quite broad, a lot of different topics. Obviously, look at the roster, is it, or the agenda? Speaker list, who's doing what? Obviously, ecom. Quite often there'll be, you know, so many. So if you want to have tie in some time on the beach, you've got SEO on the beach. You've got the Chiang Mai, which is a little bit further afield from the obviously, I think a lot of our listeners will be UK. But that's obviously quite an interesting one, having a bit of time out in Asia. So that'll be, is that every year as well? I guess it is.
Every November. And for anyone that I know that comes back mind blown. Absolutely mind blown.
That's a more mid advanced type topics. I might see you there. We might share a beer in Chiang Mai one day.
Well, I'm speaking there this year again, so get yourself out there, provided it's still on. But we don't know.
Okay. So, last couple of questions, Craig. So, SEO, tools-wise. Now, a lot of different tools. You know, there's literally probably a dozen of really cool tools that we use and we're subscribed to. Some we've been paying monthly fees for probably 12 years. I know you've mentioned quite a few already, but what would you've got an e-com store, you're about to do an audit. What's your go-to tool stack firstly for that?
So for an audit, I'll do SEMrush and Screaming Frog.
So what would you do what tools within SEMrush would you use for that?
So the SEMrush has got an auditing tool. And essentially, you know, if you're doing an audit, you want to see technically what's wrong. Obviously, you go into the website and check out their organic traffic keywords and stuff generically, but go into the audit tool, run an audit on it, and it will throw up, you know, errors that the website's got. Now, the reason I use SEMrush, one, I think it's a really good crawler. Two, I think, you know, being able to export that data in a nice PDF and send it to someone you're working for is a hell of a lot easier than showing them something from Screaming Frog. Because people look at Screaming Frog and go, what is this? So guys in this industry, you know, will know what Screaming Frog's saying, but try and show that to a customer, you're in trouble. So I like to use both. SEMrush obviously for the visual side of things, but I also think it's a good crawler. And Screaming Frog, I always do two, because I just like to make sure that I'm not missing anything.
Getting a couple of options just to make sure there's nothing been missed.
Because with any tool, sometimes, you know, flag up a false positive, or if they, like SEMrush for example, is going on a big website and it's hammering it, sometimes it'll throw up some error messages that are just because the bot's on there and using up a lot, the servers kind of, you know, told the bot to piss off basically. And it flags up some false positives as a result. So again, I just like to get a two-step approach to it.
I think you've done quite a few webinars with those guys, haven't you, at SEMrush over the years? I think.
Yeah, over the years, I've done more than 100.
Have you? Oh my God, that's madness.
I'm also a host of some of their webinars, and they've been massive for me. Great bunch of guys, and we've got a lady on the podcast on. Do you remember? She does her own thing now, but Alexandra Takalova. Oh yeah.
I met her probably about 7 years ago at Marketing Week Live in London, and we were exhibiting, and she was exhibiting for SEM Rush. So we spent a couple of days sort of having a chat and whatnot, and got to know her quite well. But yeah, she's obviously doing her own thing now, but she was there for quite a few years, and then obviously got her own agency, and she speaks a lot. She probably speaks at a lot of the events I think you're at.
Yeah, I'm good friends with Alex, and we do cross paths quite often speaking.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, she also gave me my first ever speaking opportunity. So
on SEM Rush.
Not in SEMrush. It was after her SEMrush career. She does this event, Digital Olympus, and she has done for the last 4 or 5 years. But it was 2016 when I started speaking, and she gave me my first opportunity. So
she's good, brilliant. So we've done the audit. We've looked at SEM Rush. We've looked at Screaming Frog. We're sort of comparing notes. We've got that sort of visual side from SEM Rush. So we've done the audit. From the audit, we've got a list of actions, probably on the technical side more so. So on the link building side and the link analysis side, what's your go-to tools there?
So SEMrush and Ahrefs. SEMrush are going to hate me for saying that, but
there goes your webinar career at SEM.
But Ahrefs for me, so the two tools, SEMrush primarily was always known as the keyword research tool, and the link data wasn't always up to scratch. The link data has changed and it is up to scratch now, but so many people still use DR and still, look at Ahrefs. It's just more of a habit than anything now. So Ahrefs and SEMrush for that.
Yeah. So then we've looked at the links, we've got the analysis, we see the links that the client or the website's got, and then we're looking now to outreach. We talked about Pitchbox. Any other tools on the outreach side of things?
So there's a few others that you can use if you want. Buzzstream, Mailshake. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Ninja Outreach is another one. It's a bit, the interface doesn't look great, but still does the job. So those are a couple of other ones if you want to try it out on a much lower budget.
Okay. And then say reporting. Are you a Data Studio fan, or are you do you use a sort of a like SEM Rush's reporting, or what's your reporting?
If I was doing client work, then I would use SEMrush's reporting, and that's what I've always done when I was doing client work. One of the reasons I don't do client work, though, is I fucking hate reporting. So Data Studio, absolutely not. Never even looked at it. So it was normally always a copy and paste job, screenshots from SEMrush, and that was it, or PDFs from SEMrush. I'm not a reporting fan, so sorry, I can't really help you.
It's one of those things. I think as an agency, obviously agency owner, it's like, we spend, even with all the different tools we've got on our stack, we spend so much time doing it. And then I think you like you say, I hate doing fucking reporting. I think the clients hate flipping reading the reports as well half the time, or it's like, just give me the headlines, give me that half pager. That's it. We spent this, we got this back. The traffic's here. It was here. Now it's here. This is what we've done. This is what we're going to do. Okay, Craig. Well, thank you so much. Final question. I always like to end on a book recommendation. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a Ladybird book. It could be an SEO book. It could be. Are you a bit of a reader? Obviously, you're a big learner. But what was
learner? But believe it or not, I've very rarely ever read a book. I'm more of a visual learner. I prefer to watch videos and tutorials that way. Don't get me wrong, I have read books in the past on SEO. One book I really did enjoy, though, if you're going to force me for a book answer, is Alan Sugar's book. I have a lot of admiration for Alan Sugar and just the way he started his business. He started out with no money and hustled and wheeled and dealed. And I know, again, he's one of those Marmite characters. People either love him or hate him. But very successful guy, and read his book, which I thought was very, very interesting, just to see some of the stuff, the way that he built up his business and whatnot, some of the stuff he's been through. So that was a very, eye-opening book, and obviously from someone that I admire quite a lot, but I'm not a huge book fan. I've tried a million times to get into Audible and everything, tried different things.
All the videos. You prefer
But
the videos.
I'd rather do a video. Everyone's different.
Yeah. I have to admit, you know, I did the whole college uni thing, and I was horrendous at the whole thing. You know, if I'm honest, I'm completely honest, like the whole reading and learning thing was not my thing. Somehow got a degree, and I still to this day not even sure how that happened. And I never really read a book till I was about 30 odd. I'm 47 now, and it's sort of I was just not. I found it a lot more challenging than the visual side, I have to admit. But now I'm a lot better at reading. I read a lot actually, but I didn't used to at all. It was literally like, oh, forget it.
Yeah, no, I'm still like that, and it's not going to change as much as I try. I'd love to. I've just not got the patience. I think I get bored, so I'd read 2 or 3 pages and then say, right, what can I do now? I can't see anything.
Concentration on it. I know what you mean. I normally got about 5 books on the go, and it takes me about 5 months to get through the 5. So for the guys that are listening in, what's the best way to find out more about yourself? And sort of, you've got the training courses, we've got obviously speaking events, and obviously a lot of an amazing podcast. What's the best places to find all the content?
All of that stuff you can find on craigcampbellseo.com. Podcast, the speaking events, and any kind of tutorials, guides, news that I want to share is all on there. So that's the best place. Other than that, you'll find me kicking about on social media, which all the icons are on the website anyway. If you want to see what stupid stuff I'm doing in TikTok or crazy stuff I'm doing in Facebook, I post a lot of garbage on here, to be honest, but it's always fun. It's not all SEO, but yeah.
Yeah, so Craig Campbell SEO is where everything is, and then it will feed off their podcasts, training courses. Right, well, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
No problem, Richard. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.